And
I
now
was
we-
framed, I tell you. Framed.
And that is recording.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think it is. Yep, there it is.
Okay. Cool.
Are
you framed?
I've always been framed since I
There
was
you go.
born. I am naturally photogenic. I am not at all naturally photogenic.
Stop.
Alright, great.
Ready?
Hello everyone. Welcome once again to Editing the Academy. Clapping it. Nice!
There we go.
I'm Darryl.
I'm Laura.
Laura, what's the year and films that we're talking about today?
This is the 1991 Best Picture nominees for pictures that were released in 1990. We have Godfather III, Ghost, Awakenings, Dances with Wolves, and Goodfellas.
And congratulations, second decade down.
That's right, yes.
Little fist bump, there we go.
Finished the 70s and 80s now.
Well,
into the 90s.
Well, we might do a comparison thing, we might not, I don't know.
All right.
Other notables released that year. Misery, Truly, Madly, Deeply. Love that film. That's a good romance
That's
film.
Alan Rickman, right?
Yep.
Love that.
Miller's Crossing, my #1 film of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Slackers, Postcards from the Edge, Total Recall, the original, obviously. Jacob's Ladder, Hunt for Red October, which still even today holds up, even though
Great.
Sean Connery is just Sean Connery.
Great popcorn movie.
Avalon, one of your favorites.
One of my favorites.
Flatliners, Edward Scissorhands, Home Alone, I only put that in because it was massively popular. The Grifters, and The Two Jakes, which is a sequel to Chinatown.
Ah, interesting.
And Jack was in that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
I always go alphabetical, but I'm willing to start wherever.
I think Awakening sounds like a great place to start.
All right. Awakenings, written by Steven Zalian, hope I pronounced that correctly, directed by Penny Marshall, starring Robert De Niro, Robin Williams, Julie Kavner, Ruth Nelson, John Hurd, Penelope Ann Miller, Peter Stormare, and Max von Sydow, and it's based on Oliver Sacks' 1973 nonfiction memoir of the same title. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, did not win anything. Fun facts.
Fun facts is it's not on the AFI list.
I'm shocked.
And
Shocked, I
out
tell
of
you.
all of the parts, the most sought after part in the movie was the part of Leonard's mother. That kind of
Really?
every old actress came out of the woodwork and wanted that film. Wanted that part, including Shelley Winters, who tells the story that they asked her to audition for it, and she showed up at the audition at the casting director's table and pulled out her 2 Oscars and put them on the table and said, "Do you still want me to audition?" And they said no. And theoretically, this is again Shelley Winters, they gave her the part, but there was apparently some tension with Penny Marshall and Shelley Winters, and so it went to the woman who was a very renowned theater actress who actually ended up getting it, and I thought did a fantastic job. She lost a lot of parts during the 50s because her husband was one of the folks that was called up by Senator McCarthy as being a communist.
Oh.
So by, kind of by association, she
Yeah.
lost out on a lot of roles, and so very interesting.
I love that with Shelley Winters, just being
Yeah.
like, bang, that's
Boom.
awesome.
And can't just see her doing it too.
Of course,
Totally.
of course. And honestly, I now that I know that she was up for it, I think she would have done a better job than this woman did.
It would have been a bigger job, like a
Definitely.
bigger, louder
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
I don't mean size-wise, I mean just like she would have been bigger in the role.
Yeah, I agree. We could dive in right there if we want.
Alright.
Talking about the people in the film. I thought the one person that did occasionally take me out of it was the mom.
Really?
Yeah. She just, it seemed sometimes watching her like I was watching a soap opera, soap opera acting.
Yeah.
And while I have no problems with soap opera, it is a different form of acting. She was doing one style, everybody else was in a different movie.
So it's interesting, I didn't see that, I actually really liked the mother, but knowing that she is a great theater actor, you could see her being a theater actor while everyone else was a movie actor.
Yep.
So again, I can kind of see that.
Don't get me wrong, I think she did a great job.
Right.
But she was the weak link for me because
Okay.
she just seemed like she was in a different movie or a different performance style than
Interesting.
everybody else was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I've read a lot of Oliver Sacks.
No, I haven't.
His entire career is based on like medical oddities and things. One of his most famous works is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat.
I have heard of that, but I've never read it. I haven't read any of his stuff, I don't think.
So it's a lot of those kind of situations of
Okay.
people having brain issues and, thinking is one thing and another. So
Interesting.
I
Alright.
have not actually read this one. I've read a ton of others.
Mhm. My refrigerator just made ice,
Oh, I
sorry.
thought someone was knocking at the door.
Sorry.
No worries. So I don't know how accurate this is in comparison to the book. I will say I like this story, but I don't love this story.
I would say that on all levels. Like, I liked the performances. I didn't love them. It's the same thing. Like, we talked recently about Dead Poet Society, and I said the Robin Williams part took me out of the movie too much. It didn't here. Like, I could see Robin Williams as the character, so I really appreciated that. But it was fine. Now, did I sob like a baby through the movie in the parts where I was supposed to sob? Absolutely. But did they earn it? I don't know. I mean, like, this was the answer to Rain Man.
Yeah.
Clearly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that this movie earned a lot of its emotional moments. I think it earned some of them. I don't think it earned all of them. I think Penny Marshall is also notorious for kind of playing on people's emotions in her films.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this was she'd already done Big.
Right.
So this was probably because Big was such a success. She was like, this is the film I want to do. It probably been brewing in her head for a while. I just don't think it was executed the way that the material kind of needed it to be.
It was interesting because you think that the point of the story is about the people who had the awakenings, who were in the comas or whatever you want to call it, and then kind of awoke and then went back to sleep. It wasn't. It was about the people around them and how they learned to love life and appreciate the things around them and appreciate the people that, like the nurses and how they took so much greater care of their patients at the end. And so I don't know, I didn't love that as a theme. I didn't love the emotional manipulation of it. I agree, like Penny Marshall, I feel like Big and A League of Their Own are probably my two favorites, and they do this same exact thing, but they earn it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's just the material. I'm not saying it needed a softer, more delicate touch, but I think it needed a more nuanced approach.
Yes, exactly.
And Penny's not really a nuanced kind of director,
No.
and that's fine. For what she does, she's amazing. But I think this film needed a little bit more nuance to give you a little bit more of an emotional ride as you went in, as opposed to like bang, 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 which this is exactly what this film did.
They are awake, they are asleep.
Yep.
It really did. I will say that there were a couple performances I do want to call out. Like Julie Kavner, I thought was wonderful.
Which one was she?
She's the nurse.
Oh yeah,
she's the head nurse that Robin
yeah.
Williams ends up asking out for a cup of coffee because she was quiet and in the background, but in the moments that she was in the foreground, I thought she really shone. So I really liked her. I loved her performance. I didn't love anything around the Penelope Ann Miller stuff and the subplot there. I get why they were doing it. He was a 20-year-old man when he went to sleep, and it's everything is awakening, and I understand that, but I didn't get the point of it other than to be, and here's a really emotional moment for you.
The romance seemed to come out of the blue, and it was telegraphed. You knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yep.
And it didn't deviate from that, which was surprising to me because putting myself in that situation, which obviously I can't, but looking at it, why would you go for someone who just told you that they are in this institution, they're not able to leave the institution, and you're gonna fall for that person? Like, how desperate is your life? They didn't show anything about her life except for she cared for her father.
Right.
So we never got any sort of rationale that made sense to me for why she would fall for Robert's character.
They had one scene together where they kind of really got into meeting each other and a depth of knowledge of one another, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it. I do want to say, I thought it kind of hit you upside the head with the messages. Appreciate life and look around and smell the roses and then cry here, and I did. And I did what I was supposed to do, the movie did what it was supposed to do, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
Also, it's just sad. I don't want to watch it again.
That's been the problem with a lot of these movies, and we've talked over and over about trying to remove ourselves and put ourselves in the time period of it, and sometimes that's very difficult to do. Something like this, And in a lot of these films, it's just a connection to the story. And we've
Yeah.
seen very mundane, boring stories be super dramatic and being able to connect with them.
Yeah.
And when you have a very complex story like this one, if you can't make me connect to it, that I don't think is me. That I think is you.
I would agree with that.
And so everything was fine, but again, yeah, I don't want to see it again. I don't need to see it again. I only watched it again because we're doing this.
Right, and again, like we talked, character plot and cinematography, so to speak, and this really wasn't an interestingly shot or directed movie.
No. And it did have a play feel because it was primarily one location over and over again, which that's fine. You can utilize what
Yeah.
you have.
But Arsenic and Old Lace had one room, and
Yeah.
they did super interesting things.
Absolutely. A couple comments. Kudos on the casting because the kid who played the young Robert De Niro
Oh my God!
looked like a young Robert De Niro.
Acted, spoke, he
Yeah.
was perfect.
Yeah.
I forgot about him. He
Yeah.
was perfect.
So kudos to the casting director on that one.
Totally right.
I think overall, and this is again based on a true story, and I do know Oliver Sacks did get his start in this particular way. And I think for the film in particular, his being a researcher, not a clinical practicing medical doctor, does work in his favor for the film because he's coming at it like, I don't know, so I'm going to do everything and anything
Yes.
as opposed to following the strict doctrines of what has come before, which of course is how we get to this in the first place. So I think that totally worked in his favor.
And a researcher, yeah.
Yeah. The one thing though that's, I was, as always, doing a little bit of research and I never saw anybody comment on this, like, Robin Williams' character commits medical fraud. Like
In what way?
He gives him way over the
Oh, yeah.
expected dose.
Yeah, you
Like,
can't do that today.
You would be disbarred, not disbarred, but your
Yeah,
license would be revoked if this was discovered.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
Well, like
I
you
don't
have
think in
is-
1969 was probably that much worried about that stuff, but yes, you're absolutely right.
like you have issues with lawyer stuff. I always have issues
do.
with doctor stuff.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. That's true.
I had forgotten a lot of how the movie tracked and how it went, and I actually had forgotten that they all went back. I
Yeah.
thought it was just Robert's character that went back, not everybody. So even that part, though, forgetting it was completely telegraphed. Like, you know that something bad is going to happen, and they telegraph it very early. I know that they were probably trying to be subtle, but like the slight twitches that he would do, you're like, once you see the one twitch, you're like, you know exactly what's happening. So why parse it out for so long? You know what I mean?
Yes, I think that part was too long, and I think the part that was too short was between him failing and everybody else failing. Because that's the part that would have been interesting. It's like you are seeing the person that got the medicine first fail,
Yep.
and you know it's coming for you. And they had one very small scene, but you didn't see any of the kind of pre-mourning that those patients were probably having and thinking and what
All
they
this
were
is
going
going
through.
away.
This is going to happen to me.
Yep.
And exactly, and if the whole movie is about cherish and appreciate your life while you have it, why wouldn't we want to talk about what is it? Okay, I've got a week left. What's the what am I going to do?
What am I gonna do? Yeah.
How am I going to spend that last week before I'm going to be in that same situation again? And that was completely missed.
Yep.
And I really wanted to see what's Ann Mira going to do, you know?
No, I agree with you. I think it was a missed opportunity to bring something fuller and deeper to the film that they just, I mean, maybe they filmed scenes and they got cut for whatever reason, but
Could be.
we didn't see it. And I
Yeah.
think we did need to see that because I think you're right. That would have gave an additional layer of tension and drama to it,
Yep.
where there was not a heck of a lot of tension and drama
No.
in this, and it would have added. I do have one question for you. Penelope Ann Miller's father is in the same clinic with the same issues. Everybody else gets fixed for temporarily. He doesn't. Did I miss something?
You might have, because they do a filtering process at the beginning to see like who has this specific issue. Like he's catatonic, has dementia like a lot of older people do. But basically they did the whole thing where they threw the ball at people and
Yeah.
some people it bounced off their head and some people couldn't catch it. Only the ones that actually caught it got the drug.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think they were kind of saying not everybody here has this same exact source of their
Okay.
dementia.
Okay, I
whatever
totally
it
missed
is.
that, and
Yeah.
that's on me, sure. I mean, I wouldn't want to have been hit over the head with it, so if they did it in that fashion, that is a good way to demonstrate it.
Yeah, and her father was not one of the ones that was specifically filtered out, but they showed a filtering process, so you make that assumption.
My last thing that I want to talk about with this one, and this is a question for you. I know you really like the mom, but
Yes.
did you think that the mom being so overprotective was necessary and brought anything to the film?
Oh, I did. That was my
Okay.
favorite part. And part of the reason was that's her life. Her life for 30 years is taking care of this boy or this man. And so like her entire life is changing and she's terrified for him. She's terrified also for herself of what does this mean if he's now going to go off and live this life and I've just wasted the last 30 years of my life.
Right.
So I actually really liked that part of it is to her, he's still 20,
Yep.
first of all. He may be a man, but he's still like 20 and probably 11 or 12. So probably 11 or 12 in her mind. And so I understood the whole overprotectiveness. And I love that she had like this quiet dignity and strength to her. So it meant a little bit to me just because looking at what is her life going to be? She's now going to kind of go back to what she was before. She doesn't know anything else. She was scared for herself, I think.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it wasn't mishandled. It wasn't. It was.
Just not necessary.
Well, I think you're right that it was necessary because she is a very important character in the film itself as his caregiver, and so through her, you're seeing a lot of the things that she kind of is a stand-in for all the other caregivers
Right.
in a way. So I can understand and why that was the way it was. I just questioned like the being so overprotective, like her tirade going on about girls, and he's never talked about girls before. Sure, I understand, but I didn't think that part was as necessary, I guess. I don't know. I had an issue with it, and I don't know exactly what the issue was.
I think she still saw him as 11 or 12.
Sure,
and
and
so
even Robin
therefore,
points that out.
Yeah, and so therefore for her, it's too soon and what's happening.
Yep,
But she doesn't realize that his chronological age has obviously changed.
right. Yeah, that's all I had for this. Do you think, based on the other films that we've mentioned, that this one deserved to be nominated?
There's a lot of good ones on that list that should have been nominated, so I struggle with this one.
Okay.
Honestly, I think part of it was because of the Robert De Niro role, and again, I think it was the answer to Rain Man. And I think that Robin Williams has now been in a bunch of Oscar-nominated movies, and so like this was the Oscar movie. So, but no, I don't necessarily think this should have been nominated. How about you?
I don't. No, I mean, we've struggled with sometimes a lot of why some of these movies were nominated, and then we look at some of the other films that year, and
Yeah.
we're like, okay, yeah, these were the cream of the crop, and other
Yeah.
times we're like, what the hell? Passage to India callback.
There you go.
Anyway, Dances with Wolves.
Let's do it.
Dances with Wolves. Starring, directed, and produced by Kevin Costner in his feature directorial debut. It's a film adaptation of the 1988 novel Dances with Wolves by Michael Blake, based on his actual experiences. Stars a host of Native American actors. I'm not going to list them all off, but principally Kevin Costner, Mary McDonald, Graham Greene, and Rodney Grant. And I've always loved Graham Greene. Like he's
I
so
love him in
underrated.
everything. Yep.
It was nominated for, I think, everything it could have been at the time. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. It won a ton as well. It won for Sound, Score, Editing, Cinematography, Adapted Screenplay, Best Director for Kevin Costner, and did win Best Picture for Jim Wilson and Kevin Costner. Go with the fun facts. I'm curious about what you found on this.
Okay, so I found a couple of different fun facts. So if you don't like them, I've got alternate ones. But one of them is that it's the first Western to win Best Picture since 1931's Cimarron.
Okay.
Which is interesting when you think of like the 50s and 60s were very Western heavy. So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. And then the other one I had to look up because my question to myself was, did they really have that many buffalo? Because like that was a beautiful shot. They had 3,500 buffalo that they actually had there, and they also used mechanical buffalo or different things for when they were hurt. They clipped some of the arrows onto their fur so that it looked like, some that were hurt. So it was basically a very humane use of 3,500 buffalo. So that's what I had. The other one is that there was I'm just gonna read them all to you, so
Sure.
whether you like them or not. The other one was that the author of the novel actually wrote a sequel.
Oh.
I forget what it was called, but basically it was set 11 years later, and it was about his life with Stands with a Fist, their children, and Kevin Costner said no. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to be in it. The story ended where I wanted the story to end, so no sequel.
All right. I have a fascinating one for you.
Oh, brilliant.
So I, in the course of the research, I stumbled down a rabbit hole. So this is the Lakota Sioux.
Yeah.
And they actually did have a person on set who was training a lot of the actors how to speak, because the Native Americans were not actually Lakota Sioux. I can't remember what tribe they were from.
Probably various tribes.
They weren't. But the Lakota Sioux language has two different tenses, male and female.
Okay.
And so when a male talks, they speak in the Lakota male, and when
Alright.
a female speak, they speak in the Lakota female. But it's two technically different languages. The person they had on site was female and only taught everybody the female.
Interesting.
So after the film came out, there were tons of Lakota who would go and were just laughing hysterically watching these men speak in this female.
Oh, that's wild. That's a great fun fact. Interesting. Kind of like the French with the different verb, the different pronouns before nouns.
Yep.
You know. Oh, interesting. Cool.
I just thought that was hysterical.
That's very funny.
Okay, this one has always been interesting to me, and there are a lot of conversations in particular about this movie. This movie gets lumped into the question of like the whole white savior aspect in movies a lot, and we can talk about it out of the gate, or we can talk about it later on down the line. But I am curious to your thoughts on this. I have a very strong stance on it.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about that, but we can get into the more technical aspects of the film. But I always, like a lot of Kevin Costner films, when I rewatch them, I forget how much I enjoy them because it's Kevin Costner. And in my head, Kevin Costner has never been as good as he actually is.
He's really good.
I know.
Yeah.
But I always forget, how talented of an actor he is. He's not the best actor by any means, but he is above average for sure.
Totally agree.
And the way, and I've heard a lot of interviews with him, and he gets deeply involved in every film he's ever done, to the point of it causes tension on set a lot. And so his being able to finally give his full vision to a film and have it be rewarded, kudos on him. So I just thought that was interesting. This film is a very long film.
It is a very long film.
And it's a long time before people really speak. Outside of the beginning, there's it's like 45 minutes to an hour almost, where there's just no dialogue except for him talking.
The voiceover,
That's it. So that one, I always forget about that as well.
And do you know that the theatrical release is an hour less than the director's cut?
Yeah.
So it should be, in his vision, a 4-hour movie.
Which I didn't know, but that's the one I watched this time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is super long.
Yes.
Super long.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to respond to my thoughts. Let's start right up front with the white savior piece, and because I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it. So my thought is, and my thoughts are not as strong as yours, but I'm looking at this in 1990. Yes, of course it's a white savior film. However, it also shows the majesty of the Native Americans and their culture, and this is the way the movie had to be made in 1990, was you do have him coming in and kind of, he actually doesn't rescue them, because there is no rescue, but he does come in and kind of views their culture, saves the tribe at one point. He does in fact save the tribe at one point, so white savior there. I think it is done as nuanced and as inoffensively as is possible for the times, and I don't find it offensive. But I do think that you are, again, telling a Native story when you are not a Native person is hard and problematic. So go and disagree with me, because I know that you will.
I do.
Yes.
I do not find this to be a white savior movie at all, principally for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. One, he doesn't save them. He is taught by them. He does not teach them. He is not... The white savior movie is typically like white male comes in, changes culture, saves everything, makes things better, and then leaves, and everybody's super happy. That is not this film.
Not the case.
So by that definition, this is not a white savior film to me. Yes, there are moments when the other Indian tribe, I can't remember who they were, Native American tribe, come and attack.
Pawnees, I think,
Yeah. and he is the principal battle leader for that, which that to me makes sense. He's like, he does have the experience with the guns, so he's
Right.
teaching them how to use them. They're not all fighters.
But here's the question, why is that scene needed at all?
Uh,
Except for to show that he saved the tribe. Like, why do we need that at all?
I think it's just a neat battle scene, so
Yeah.
sure. But two, the thing that it accomplished for me is, remember at the very end of the film, you have Wind in the Hair screaming, "He's your friend," so you see that transition over time. But also the kid who is constantly getting in trouble and mischief.
Smiles, I forget what his name, yes.
But never actually really speaks to Kevin Costner at all, but at the very, very end with tears in his eyes gives him a thing and goes running away.
Yep.
During that battle, and also on the buffalo, he saves him.
Right, and I get the buffalo, and I think all of that could have been accomplished with the buffalo moment. I think that scene was needed to show Kevin Costner as the hero
Yeah.
who saves the tribe. So I would agree with you if that scene did not exist in the movie.
Okay, and that's valid, valid. But yes, overall, I don't think this fits the definition of the white savior movie. The Tom Cruise Seven Samurai, 100%. But I don't think this one does, and so I will defend it in that capacity. And some white savior movies are fine for me, most are not, but they do have to actually have some sort of earning to it. And this one is all about his expression and interpretation and how he feels and thinks about his time with them. So in that framework, I don't think it is.
I will give you that since Noah is saved, it is not a white savior movie. So I will agree with you on the plain reading of it, but I think it is the most gracefully done of any movie of its type.
Yeah, I will give you that as well.
Okay.
To the film itself, this one is filled in particularly the beginning, which is some very odd moments.
Such as like when he runs out, smacks his head, and passes out for a half an hour.
That.
Why?
When he encounters the, I don't know if he was a colonel or general or whatever he was, who's basically just looks at him and is like, I just pissed my pants and nobody can do anything about it. And then 5 minutes later shoots himself in the head. What the hell was the point of all of that?
The point was the only two people who knew he was at the outpost died.
Oh, yes,
And
that's
so-
true. So then when they can't find the journal,
Yeah,
okay,
and so
okay.
nobody knows he's out there.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be out there. So
The light bulb just went off.
So between him and I read that, so it's not my light bulb. So between him and the guy on the wagon who later is killed by Native Americans, sorry, nobody knows that he's out there.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. And yeah, I should have seen that one all along, but I didn't.
No.
For me, and I know this is a topic we talk about a lot, a voiceover in film, does it work, does it not? For me, this does, principally because of there's so little dialogue that it does help give you insight into his head. Otherwise, you're just watching him like do chores, you know.
I don't know a better way they could have done that. I agree, and I'm the one that generally doesn't like voiceover, and there's actually 2 occasions of it this year where I thought it was done really well, and this is one. I don't know how else they could have actually had communicated for him.
Yep, I think it was effectively done. It was not overdone. There's not constant narration.
He didn't have a bloody volleyball to sit there and talk to, so you gotta do what you gotta do.
Wilson. Yeah, okay, so that worked for me, and I thought it was necessary because even a 3-hour version of this with so little dialogue, particularly that first hour, is a struggle to get through. So having something to break that up does give the audience member a chance to still, okay, I'm still here, I'm still with it, I'm still engaged.
Yep. How about the characters? Can we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the characters because first of all, I really liked his portrayal of himself. He was, Dunbar was a bit of a nerd and kind of dorky and really wanted to learn and to be friends and was humble and was like all of those things, but also made mistakes.
Yeah.
And he seemed like a really well-rounded character. He wasn't the white hat, he wasn't the black hat. He was a guy who was just doing his best, and sometimes he failed and sometimes he didn't. I liked that. The other thing I absolutely loved was that each of the individual Native American characters, the main characters, were individuals.
Yes.
Even if some of them you didn't hear them speak, like Kickingbird's wife, for example. So that's Graham Greene's wife.
Yeah, yeah.
She just like has looks from time to time, and like the look like when they're having sex and Delmar's looking over, it's like you know exactly what she's thinking. And then later a couple of other times too, like when Kicking leaves to go off on the raid, she like her fear for him, her pride in him, it's just right there on her face. She's the one that gets him to release Stands with a Fist from her mourning period.
Yep.
And so you see that she is a strong person. She has a role in the tribe, but she also barely speaks in the whole movie. And there are so many of those characters that are the same. And I thought it was a fantastic use of just drawing out individuals that you don't normally see in these type of movies.
We've talked about this a lot too. The choice of what to show becomes hugely important.
Yes.
Just having someone on screen for 5 minutes or 30 seconds here, whatever, that doesn't matter. It's what they're doing and what are you showing in those moments. And when they did show the individual characters, even like when they're in their council meetings and they're talking, everybody is incredibly respectful of everybody else.
Yes.
And the way that they're actually talking and showing their respect does give you insight into who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Wind in his hair is very respectful, but wants to go kill the
He's
white
a
guy.
hothead. Yeah, he's a hothead, and
Right.
you can see that, but he's still got respect.
Yep.
And he's a fully realized character, which I absolutely love. He is not just the hothead.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all of those characters did have multiple moments where you could see that. Graham Greene throughout was always just amazing. But yeah, each of the characters were individualized, and you could feel that, so that when they did something, it made sense for what you saw before.
Exactly.
So that was handled incredibly well.
Yep. Nope. I love that. I also think that this was a beautiful film.
Yes.
I mean, it was. You would not think this was a first-time director. I mean, we talked about like the big space and the epicness, which I was just talking about the buffalo, and like that was. All of those moments were gorgeous. And then you have the very small moments like between him and Stands with a Fist, or in the council meetings, very claustrophobic use of space and still really well done. So I thought he was a great director. I was impressed.
Yep.
What else has he directed? I mean, Horizons I haven't seen.
He ended up taking over, I can't remember if he actually gets credit to this day or not, but he ended up taking over Waterworld, which is one of the best bad movies ever.
I've not seen that. I gotta add it to
so
my
horrible.
list.
Like
Okay.
you cannot.
I've heard all about it, but yeah.
You have to. It's Mad Max on the water. Is what it is.
Cool.
And you have to play Mystery Science Theater with it, otherwise you will not be able to get through it.
All right, I think that sounds like an off-camera activity for us. Okay.
Can we talk about the relationship between Dunbar and Stands with a Fist? Because the development of that relationship is the only thing, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it's the only thing that I kind of question a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it starts out as very utilitarian.
Yeah.
She is there to translate. She doesn't want to be there. She's not happy to be doing this. So their relationship starts out very utilitarian. He falls for her very quickly.
Yep.
But is trying to be respectful, so he's not pushing things.
Yeah.
But you could tell that he wants to, and he's kind of, you get the feeling, almost accustomed to.
Yep.
And so she's very standoffish until she's not.
There was I don't know what happened there. There was a switch that was flipped of, oh no, now I like him.
Yeah, and then like suddenly they're making out in it under every tree they can find.
Exactly.
Like, how did that come to be? I didn't know if I'd missed something, if there was an event, or if it was just like, okay, we need you to fall in love with him now.
I think that was what it was, unfortunately, because there was the one line again before Kickenberg takes off of. He says, you can continue to talk with him, and she says, I like talking with him. Like, that's it. That's the one line of, there might be a seed of something that's growing, but you didn't see it, and you didn't see it happen, and I agree with you. I thought that it was way too fast.
They did do a good, and I'll give them kudos, they did do a good job of, in the beginning, before they're in love, of watching her mask and demeanor kind of melt towards him, because as she's teaching him the language, he's consistently stumbling and messing it up, so she can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
And so you see that slow process of her warming up to him, not being as standoffish, but then suddenly it's like in love when we're making out everywhere. So.
Well, and she also she just did a wonderful job with the language parts altogether. Just at the beginning, she really sounded like somebody who, okay, this is an unfamiliar tongue for me, and I think it's this word, and I'm gonna try, and she clearly had a place of honor with folks, because they were getting frustrated. She was getting frustrated right back, and she had the ability talk back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I really think she deserves more kudos than she has probably gotten for this. I know she got an Oscar nomination, but she was great.
And best known probably in her career now outside of this movie for Battlestar Galactica, which if you have not watched the reboot of that series, it's phenomenal. And she's amazing all the way through.
Agree.
Yes, I really did enjoy this film again and again because it's a Kevin Costner film. I always forget how good he is. And for the first time director, he nailed it out of the gate.
Totally agree with you. The one thing I will say that was, and we just said it with Awakenings, there was just a little too much heavy-handedness at the end of, the everybody in the army, bad guys, black hats, kill the horse, kill the wolf. Like, you couldn't have made them more textbook, comic book bad guys.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit heavy-handed. So I think that they could have, there was that, Charles Rocket played like one fairly decent guy, but even he was a terrible person. So I just thought it was just a little bit too heavy-handed.
I agree. All right, I have Ghost next.
Let's talk about Ghost.
I really don't want to.
Oh, I have things to say.
Oh, good. All right, Ghost, directed by Jerry Zucker from a screenplay by Bruce Joel Rubin and starring Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg, Tony Goldwyn, Vincent Schiavelli, and Rick Viles. Nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and Best Original Score. And it won for Whoopi for Best Supporting and Best Screenplay written directly for the screen for Bruce Joel Rubin. Go with the fun facts.
So the fun fact is that the role of Sam was originally offered to Bruce Willis. They wanted to have Demi, he was married to Demi Moore at the time.
Yeah.
They wanted to have that be play off of their real life coupledom celebrity. And he thought it was going to be a terrible flop of a movie, and so he didn't want to be in it. And actually it was number 1 to his number 2 Die Hard 2 that year. And so he says to this day, he's like, well, I was miss on that, or he said to this day. And then the only other one is Tony Goldwyn, who we now know is the president from Scandal, who played the bad guy, a friend, is the grandson of Samuel Goldwyn from MGM fame, and Metro Goldwyn Mayer.
I never watched Scandal. Is it worth it?
Oh my God, it's fantastic. You have to watch it. It's it's super soapy, Shonda Rhimes, but really well written.
50 shows.
Yeah, really well written, really well performed, and Kerry Washington is spectacular.
Okay.
So, yeah, he plays the president that she has a fling with.
All right, so I'm going to start by saying this. The first time this movie came out, I saw it, and I immensely disliked it.
Okay.
So this time around, conscious effort, breathe, let it be, try to wash everything out of your head. Remember, this was a 1990s film.
Fair.
Go into it, give yourself the open mind and space to breathe, and 15 minutes that was completely shut down and I was done again. I do not like this film.
So here's my relationship with the film is I love Patrick Swayze. Love Patrick Swayze in all of his forms. And I remember having seen this movie when it first came in, and I remember never revisiting it and never seeing it again, and I didn't really know why. It's because it's a terrible movie.
Yes!
It's a terrible, terrible movie. I was telling my sister and brother-in-law the movies that we were watching, and I listed them, and my sister was like, oh, Ghost, I think I liked that. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you think you liked it, but if you watched it today, you did not like it.
Nope.
Yeah. Terrible, terrible movie. I don't know where to start.
Okay,
so would you like to direct us?
I will start.
Okay. I have many comments, but
this
free
movie
floating.
has, and I know that there have been things that have been developed since, but this has every trope you could ever possibly imagine in every film ever done, ever,
Yep.
and all of them are mishandled.
Absolutely.
Every single one of them is
Absolutely
completely mishandled. It would be fine to use those tropes. I have no problem when people do that.
Sure.
It's a little bit of a shortcut that you can do. One of my favorite movies of all time, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is filled with tropes, and they handle them
Very
beautifully.
clever.
Yes. This doesn't. Every single one is mishandled. Oh my God, Patrick Swayze is such he's kind of a crazy, goofy guy. Like he could possibly get in danger is way over the top. And I know this is not technically their fault, but even for the 1990s, there were better effects available.
The special effects were awful.
Yes.
Awful.
Yes. Every time they take me completely out of the film. Every time. And even for 1990, there were better effects.
Yes.
We are about to do one of my favorite movies, which has horrible special effects, but they utilize them correctly.
Okay.
And so you can still, and there were other effects companies that were there.
Give the audience a preview. What is that?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
There are so many other things they could have done, and I think this whole movie just seems like the director and the people involved in making it didn't care.
So the special effects one, I'm going to tie that to the Patrick Swayze role too,
Okay.
because as much as I love Patrick Swayze, which cannot be overstated, I know he's not the best actor in the world. I understand that, but he has given some good performances in a couple of movies.
He's great in Dirty Dancing.
He's great in Dirty Dancing. If you've watched the miniseries North and South, I love him in that. He's very good in that. His performance in this was abysmal. Like, it was just terrible, and I do think it had a lot to do with special effects. I think he was being asked to act off of a green screen, or like, your hand is melting, so pretend that your hand is melting. So I'm hoping that those two things are tied together, the special effects, and his performance was awful.
Yeah. So let's talk about the performances. The only halfway decent performance in this entire film was Demi. To me.
Okay.
The only halfway decent performance. Everybody else I thought was crap. And I'll even put Whoopi into that
I'm
category.
going to argue with you on Whoopi because I really liked her, but I did have that Demi did a nice job.
So Whoopi's character, to me, the entire time I was watching it, all I could think of is she is playing the male version of Beverly Hills Cop. She is basically doing Eddie.
Interesting. All right, I didn't see that at all.
I 100% did. The mannerisms, the way she was talking, it's not quite like jive talking, but it is similar vernacular.
Okay, I think we're gonna agree a little bit, but I saw her as she's in an entirely different movie.
Yes.
She's in the movie Sister Act.
Yes.
So I see her doing her Sister Act, which I really enjoy and is fun and is a comedy and all of those things, and she's having a heightened performance. So like, I actually liked her performance. It did not fit in this movie.
Yeah.
So that's what my problem with it was.
And I agree with that. And I think Whoopi has shown over the course of her career, she was in Color Purple, minimal, but she was in Color Purple and showed that she can actually...
What do you mean minimal?
Like as it was her first role.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah.
And we've obviously seen what a great comedic actress she is over the years, and she can also do the drama.
Yep.
This one, I think a lot of it had to do with the direction that she was given. Like, there were times when it felt like it should have been a little bit more of a drama, but she was playing up the comedy.
Yes.
And there were times where it should have felt like they were playing up the comedy, but she was kind of going for the drama.
Yeah.
Like, the direction she was given, I believe, was confusing, so she didn't know in a lot of scenes how to do it. I think she was excellent in what she was trying to do.
Yes.
But I think that the performance itself in the film, you're correct, entirely different movie.
Entirely different movie.
And also, during some of the scenes, they played it the wrong way. That's why I say that's why I challenge her on this. I think her performance overall and what she was doing was phenomenal. She always is and always has been. But in this role, in this movie, no.
I think we're really saying the same thing, because I would like compare it to, so she's doing a fully comedic role in a drama/romance. And a romance is different than a romantic comedy. So drama/romance. Compare that to Cuba Gooding Jr. doing a comedic role in Jerry Maguire, which is a romantic comedy, and it's got a lot of humor in it. It's got some dramatic moments, but it's got a lot of humor in it. His is not as mismatched in that movie as her performance is so mismatched to this movie. But I think she was doing what she was told to do, and I think she did it very, very well. But I agree with you, getting back to Demi, like, she was lovely. She was soft, she was scared, she was all the emotions that she was supposed to be, and considering that this was batshit, she did a really nice job of grounding it.
Everything is so mishandled in this. The reveal when you discover, that it was of course the best friend, which you knew anyway. That's mishandled. Like the bad guy is such an over, and no, not taking anything away from the actor. I can't remember who the actor is, but the one who actually ends up shooting him and then becomes the central character that keeps breaking back into the house.
Oh yeah, right.
That he was such an over-the-top bad guy. He was so stereotypically bad, like die-hard stereotype bad.
And of course, had to be a minority. I mean, like, we had to do that in the 90s. Yeah.
And every time that they showed him, he was always dirty and disheveled and in like bad clothing.
Yes.
Like, you could not telegraph that this was a bad
Yeah.
person more. If they had kind of gone the opposite way
Yeah.
and dressed him up a little bit nicer,
Yeah.
he could still be in the poor neighborhood and all of that.
Yeah.
That's fine, but he doesn't always have
Assassins
to
can
have
wear a
dirt.
suit. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't always have to be dirty.
Exactly. No, that's a really good point. Can we talk a little bit, because I know you love the beginnings of movies, or you
Yeah.
judge on the beginning. So the opening sequence was very like horror movie,
Yeah.
but then it turns romantic. It was like just the title sequence and music was very confusing and weird. And then in the first scene, I really expected Patrick Swayze and Tony Goldwyn to have sex. Like I'm not kidding you. Like it was very homoerotic.
Yeah.
They both get their shirts off and all sweaty and you know it just missed some brown chicken brown cow kind of thing going on. It was very creepy and weird.
So I know how much you dislike exposition dumps in movies to
I
help
do, in fact.
move the plot forward. When he's in the hospital with the other dead guy who's
Yes.
just doing exposition dump after exposition dump.
Here's what
giving us-
dead guys do.
Yeah,
Here's what
these are
dead
all the
babies
rules
do
that you now
dead.
experience, which is fine. You sure take the new guy under your wing and kind of tell him what's going on.
Yep.
But it was 10 minutes of just here are the rules, here's my exposition dump, and here's a little thing for later.
Yeah.
Like watch them take away this guy, because it's not always the good guys coming to take you away.
Ooh,
Sometimes
demons.
it's
Yeah.
so mishandled.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
The only other thing was the only bright spot in this entire thing, because I'd forgotten, was when Demi goes into the police station and it's Stephen Root. I'm like, oh,
that's right.
Stephen!
He's always a joy to see. He's
I
always a
love
joy
him.
to see. I will say one bright spot was that love scene is iconic for a reason. The whole clay and everything like that. I think that the two of them had good chemistry. I think it was a short little, sex scene, shows that they love each other, their connection, and I thought it was fine. So I do think that iconic love scene, as they're doing the pottery was nice.
I'd forgotten that it comes so early. in the
Oh,
movie.
well, because he's dead in like 20 minutes.
But in my head, I always thought that scene took place while he was dead. Like she was doing it and he was
really?
coming up behind
okay.
her.
All right.
I thought that's how it was, but honestly, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. And also, never run up the fire escape. What the hell? Like every horror movie knows that.
Yeah, it just.
Not like the tropes. Nothing worked well.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I'm chalking this up to they should have written another draft of the script, sure. But it seemed like the directors and the producers just didn't care, and they got lucky.
They got super lucky. Yeah.
Because I didn't do a lot of research on this one because I just made up my mind 15 minutes in, and then every single time I tried to get back to it, it was just constantly reinforced how much I hate this movie. So I didn't do any research on it. But I would be curious, people who loved it back then, if they go back and watch it now, if it would still hold up for them.
I don't know. I'll ask my sister. I will do some on the road research and find out for you. But
'Cause
I can't imagine that they do.
I'm gonna bet that it absolutely does not.
Again, I'm the test subject for I cannot love Patrick Swayze more, and I find this movie unwatchable.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the question you usually ask me, which is, do you think this should have been nominated for
Hell
Best
no!
Picture?
This film should never have been released, let alone nominated. Oh
It's so
my god.
sad. It's so sad.
Alright, now
Alright.
that we've completely ripped apart that movie, and I'm sorry, but I enjoyed ripping that movie apart because I detest it so much.
It deserved to be ripped apart. Yeah. No. That had it coming.
Alright, I have Godfather Part III next.
Let us do Godfather Part III.
Godfather Part III. Produced and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, from the screenplay co-written once again with Mario Puzo. Film stars Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Talia Shire, Andy Garcia, Elliot Wallach, Joe Mantegna, Bridget Fonda, George Hamilton, Sofia Coppola. Was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Song. Did not win anything.
I'm shocked and astounded.
I know!
All right, so not on the AFI list. Oh, I didn't tell you on the only one that we talked about so far, Dances with Wolves, was on the AFI list.
Okay.
The original list was number 75, and then it was taken off
Ooh.
in 2008 altogether.
Wow, okay.
So not on the AFI list. So here's my fun fact for you, and I'm going to ask. Not being a Catholic, I would love to know, what's your relationship, or what do you know about Pope John Paul I?
Absolutely nothing.
Let me tell you about him.
Okay.
So, and it is related, trust me. Just
Okay.
give me a little rope here. So, Pope Paul VI died in 1978. Old man, died, all fine. And so then they have the conclave where they have to choose the next pope, and they chose a man who was a good and truly holy man. Everybody loved him. He didn't want it because he didn't think he was deserving. He became Pope John Paul I. He was going to clean up corruption in the Vatican Bank. He was going to do all the good things. He died mysteriously 33 days later in his sleep.
Okay, so that part's accurate.
So this is all based on true story. So of course, there's, the papacy says, oh yeah, no, he died of a heart attack. Of course he did, 33 days in. But there's tons of conspiracy theories, and everyone kind of assumes that he was murdered.
Yeah.
So just fun fact that they did not make this up, and the time frame would have been about the same, because like I was 8, 9, but good little Catholic girl, I remember at the time when we had 3 popes in a year, and it was a big deal.
Wow, okay.
So
I didn't remember that.
yeah, so they heavily borrowed from history.
Was the next pope after that Pope John Paul II?
Yes.
He was the one that had the Pope mobile for the first time?
Yes, and he's the one who they tried to assassinate. He was the one that was the pope for most of our known lives, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we can spend as long or as little time on this movie as you want. This is quite universally looked at as the worst of the 3 Godfather films. I am in 100% agreement with that.
I think it's the worst of many mafia films, actually. Yes, certainly the worst of the 3 Godfathers.
Well, and I'd heard that there was another actress that was supposed to play Sophia's part.
Winona Ryder.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I did know that. And she backed out for some reason at the very last minute, so Sophia stepped in.
Right.
So kudos to them for trying to make it work.
Okay.
But I think we can all acknowledge Sophia is a far better director than she is an actress.
Yep.
Because every time she speaks, I was completely taken out of any investment that I had. And it's just not, she's just not an actress, and that's fine. But halt production, find somebody else.
I agree. And
they must have done a screen test with her or something.
because she and Andy Garcia had no chemistry either.
She
they were
had
very
no
mismatched.
chemistry with anything.
The problem is, and I agree with you completely, she was fully mismatched. The problem for me is not even Sofia Coppola, it's the subplot of this romance between first cousins.
Yeah.
And hardly any, they mention it, but that's not the issue. The issue is that Andy Garcia is, too dangerous, and, it'll put her as a target and all of those things. And they're first cousins.
Yeah.
I could not get past that, and it just bugged the crap out of me that should be the first problem. And everyone's like, oh yeah, and also they're first cousins.
Yeah,
They could have made Andy Garcia Robert Duvall's character's son.
Yeah.
So therefore, no blood connection, even though technically kind of cousins.
Yeah, that
Freaks me
seems like
out.
such an easy fix
Yeah.
to do something so over the top like that would take you out of this overall story. Honestly, I was looking for moments to take me out of this story, but fine.
Yeah, but I agree with you. She was not well cast. She did not do a good job with anybody, and it's unfortunate. But for me, the bigger part was the storyline altogether.
It's not a Godfather movie without a wedding.
Absolutely true.
So we have a wedding. In this one, the wedding seems, I don't know, it seemed like they were scrimping on budget almost.
Who got married? What was the wedding scene in this one?
It was the sister's daughter, somebody, I don't remember.
I literally don't remember the wedding scene.
It was like 10 minutes of screen time, you don't remember?
I really don't, because I know he got his award, and that was the whole celebration, that there was the award that he got.
No, there was the wedding.
Wow, okay.
And it was at the wedding where, no, that was at the play where Andy said, I can't be with you anymore.
Right.
But the wedding was like a 10-minute scene, somebody got married, Al Pacino's character, the Godfather, was there to do something for the wedding, like it was a privilege for him to be there. So it wasn't like, somebody super high up, but
yeah, see, I thought it was like a religious ceremony. I didn't think it was actually a wedding, so I missed the bride.
I think it was a wedding.
Okay.
I'll be perfectly honest, I could have tuned out and then tuned back in and missed the part where this seemed like a wedding, but wasn't. To me, I thought it was
Okay, so I think just this conversation
I know,
tells
yeah.
you how invested we were in this movie, because neither of us know if you believe there's a wedding, I believe there isn't a wedding. What the heck? Yeah, we're gonna research that and put it online.
I'm so confused by a lot of things in this film.
Yeah.
Number one, I don't think it's ever adequately explained how from two, I mean, the Corleone family was very wealthy in
Yes.
two, but the degree of which is not really unknown. You know that they're wealthy, they have
Sure.
have nice homes, you know, they're probably multi-millionaires
Right.
during that time for the ending of two. They go from that to this.
Cashing out the Vatican Bank for a couple $100 million.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, and
Where'd that come from?
Not addressed, not explained,
Nope.
just suddenly they are one of the wealthiest families in the world
Yeah.
with no explanation. But it's necessary to the plot,
Yeah.
but no explanation as to how that happened or why or what they're dealing in. Like, how did they, you know, like, what are their dealings where they're getting this money?
The only explanation given, and I don't think it was adequate because I had the exact same criticism, was they cashed out of the casinos. That he cashed out of all the illegitimate businesses.
Right.
So I think that's where the big wad of money came from, was completely selling off all the illegitimate businesses. Now they've got a big pile of money.
Okay.
But I don't think that that was well enough explained.
No.
I think the struggle for me is that if this didn't have the label of Godfather on it, this would not, to me, be a Godfather movie. It's
No,
just
I
such a departure from the other two. I mean, like, the other two were about family. I mean, it's all about the family. And so we start with his kids were being raised by Kay and Kay's new husband. You know, I let her take on their education. Talia Shire had kids in the last movie. Where were they? We never saw them. So like there was nothing about the family and the connections there. The son was a plot point. You know,
Yep.
you would have thought that Al Pacino's son being up for the next Godfather, even though he didn't want to be part of the family, that should have been more than one scene with Kay. But yeah, it was just, and then he's weakened by diabetes and in a coma in the hospital. Like, I don't even know what that was all about.
So, the typical Godfather plot point in 1 and 2, you have a rival, you take care of the rival.
Yes.
Like, so there's a rival very early on in this film,
Mhm.
and then is almost immediately dispensed with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we find out later that there's another rival, a member, and that becomes the plot. But that's like an hour and a half in.
Yes. Yep.
So we have a rival taken care of in the first 20 minutes of the film.
Yep.
Then we have another hour and 15 minutes to go before we have
Yep.
another rival that then takes care of the last part of the film.
Yep.
Like, this was so incredibly disjointed and not Godfather.
Not The Godfather, totally disjointed, and it borrowed things. So you've got, like, in The Godfather 2, you've got Hyman Roth, and then in this one, you've got the Eli Wallach character. So you've got, like, old man,
Yep.
you know, old guard that they have to get rid of in order to move forward. And the same thing with, in the first one and in the last one, you've got all of the assassinations have to happen at the same time while Michael is publicly being seen either at the christening or at the opera house. So, like, they're borrowing heavily on things that work.